Okay, we're live.
Okay, great. Sorry, guys, we started a little bit late. We just needed to sort of a quick little internet issue. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Looks like we've got quite a few people joining in. So I just want to remind everybody who hasn't been here before, you can tweet questions and comments with the hashtag Layer7Live. You can literally just chat in your comments or questions and we'll try to get them answered. I've got a comment already. No audio, no video. How's the sound, Jose?
It's there.
It's there? Okay, maybe
they might be a
your
little bit too
speakers
early
muted.
on that.
So we've got a panel of experts here from Layer 7, CA Layer 7, who were at the Mobile World Congress last week. We've got Ross with us from the Framingham office. He's on the Hangout. We've got Jeff Duck. Okay, we've got audio. And Leif Bildoy. So basically we just wanted to have an open discussion about some of the major themes, the topics, some of the things that stood out to them, and maybe some of the interesting stuff that we're working on at Layer 7 with mobile. And we did have one early question come in about M2M and IoT, which is kind of a related discussion, I suppose. But I'm just going to give the guys a chance to introduce themselves and open up the discussion. I know there was a bit of a shift this year. It seemed like Silicon Valley was kind of like a big theme around Mobile World Congress. Dimitri Sirota, one of our founders, made a comment early on that last year and previous years, big telco like AT&T would be doing the keynote. This year is Mark Zuckerberg talking about the WhatsApp acquisition and Internet.org. So those are some of the themes that were coming up from the outside, but I just wanted to get some thoughts from the guys who were actually there at the booth, talking to the people, and just get your thoughts on what were on, what kind of questions you were getting at the booth, what you thought of the show in general, and open up a discussion.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for having us, guys. I'm
Thanks
Jeff
for being
Duck,
here.
and I'm a solutions architect for CA Layer 7, and I'm the resident mobile expert on the pre-sales team, and alongside me is Leif.
Leif Bildoy, product manager for the mobile access gateway here at Layer 7, CA Layer 7.
And Ross, do you want to introduce yourself too?
Was it very warm in Barcelona?
Absolutely, yeah, it was beautiful. I got some good skating in when I was there too, so it was a good event. But overall, I think
Jose, I'm getting
at the
no audio.
booth and generally in the mobile space, I think as maybe Ross and Leif can add some comments on what they think as well. But I feel APIs and API management in general and companies' mobile strategies have really started to mature. People have started to invest in mobile in their enterprise, and I think they've also started to realize that APIs are something that's serious, that's not going to go away, that provides a good means of integration, and also that they understand that for sensitive data, they really need to start to look at mobile security and protecting these APIs, as they open them up to outside of their protected zone.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
for
also
sure.
at RSA, and that was a big theme as well, is mobile security and how difficult it can be and complicated. And so how do you get your developers to think about it and do it properly?
Yeah, I think in Barcelona in particular, there's been this sort of rise of the apps planet hall. It's kind of become the more fashionable side of the convention center to be, and it keeps getting bigger every year. And it's probably represents kind of a change in general, not just around apps necessarily, but just this idea that the show's become much more about software, and that spans a pretty broad range of things in the telco world, right? There's a lot of announcements around some of the core network becoming virtualized, defined in software, and obviously APIs have a big role to play there, and that spans right through then the gambit of value-added services and applications that that people are offering. So we saw a wide range of things this year, and I think yeah, absolutely, apps, APIs, and software is now more than ever kind of probably the key overarching theme that we see at the show, whereas probably even 2 years ago, people would have been talking a lot more about equipment and more legacy protocols and technologies that aren't particularly interesting to the end user. So it's definitely changing.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. I mean, there's obviously the usual hype around devices. So that part, from the mobile OEMs, there's always some new devices launched and so on. So I would say it was maybe a little bit disappointing. I mean, there wasn't something that stood clearly out. I mean, if there was anything, I mean, Mozilla is coming out with ever cheaper phones, whether they are feature phones or smartphones, hard to say. The functionality is certainly smartphone type, but the price point, at $25 is pretty impressive. Then of course Nokia, Microsoft Nokia, I should say, with their Android support is maybe one thing that stands out, but it begs the question, what are those guys doing with the Microsoft Windows platform? I mean,
Right.
Why, could they not get to that price point? I believe it was $89. Could they not get there with the Windows platform? I believe they would if they pushed for the volumes. But then, probably the biggest hardware side, change or innovation I saw there was the Samsung S5 with the fingerprint scanner, and people may call that a follow me from Apple, which partially true, but I would say it's actually for the first time you can use a fingerprint scanner on a device and actually do something. Apart from unlocking your screen and your phone, they talked a lot about the integration with the PayPal payment service. So with PayPal pushing out into retail and so on, you can basically authenticate with your thumb and pay for goods and services out there. So that is going to be even more interesting to follow, because it's pretty clear that Apple is going to push further when they had some time to learn their own technology, make it work. I mean, it works nicely with App Store today when you put your thumb on and you install an application. Yeah. User experience is impeccable, I would say. But we're looking for the next step here.
Yeah.
What else
So actually, did any of you guys actually use
so that would be the
Ross trying to talk.
Yeah. Did any of you guys actually use the PayPal payment service? Because you could actually pre-order your lunch from your phone, right, rather than stand in the horrendous lines, and pay directly from your device. Did anybody try that? I actually didn't try that. I think that's maybe because I didn't get to eat at all. But did anybody get a chance?
No, I didn't get a chance to try that either, and I know that there was a couple of other, NFC related things you could do at the show that I didn't really try out either, mostly for lack of having spare time, but
Exactly.
that's pretty cool. But I think
I think it's, yeah, sorry, I think it's again one of those things where the perspective of the show is changing a little, and it's interesting to see, even the industry organization that runs the show, the GSMA, is promoting these sorts of solutions, NFC, or like you could have had if you had an NFC enabled phone, then you didn't need to carry a badge around, you just carried your phone and that had all of your credentials in it.
Right.
And yeah, as you say, they had like information points that were NFC enabled, payment points that were NFC enabled. But I thought, they had built quite a good app this year that helped attendees and exhibitors kind of move around the show and understand what the taxi lines were doing and what the restaurant lines were doing. So it was pretty good.
So you're talking about I'm drunk button on that app, or
Well, there was that. That was another good innovation for sure.
yeah, no. So
Um,
I think you're on to something, and which is the trend where the mobile device is becoming the prime source of a person's identity, and because you're getting stronger security in the mobile platforms, you know, we know BlackBerry is a strong player in security, mobile security, but even Samsung, Google, and Apple, they're all building out better security in the platform, and now you get the basis of where you can actually store credentials securely and so on, your proof of identity, and the next step is how can you tie that into the ecosystems out there.
Yeah. And actually, you know, one of the other things that we saw, and it just kind of relates back to a question that we've seen already for today, this, you know, connected living scenarios, right? So there was a huge exhibit, you know, showing a variety of connected home devices that the GSMA were hosting. Qualcomm had something similar, and they showed a range of, you know, connected devices and how perhaps your identity associated with your personal device, whether that's something you wear on your wrist or something you carry in your pocket, could impact the things around you. So I thought there was some quite interesting solutions on display last week, and you know, it's definitely one of those areas where you know, all of the you know, the stuff in our lives is starting to become more connected. It's you know, I quite enjoy the idea that you know, these sorts of services are available to us, and you know, they were demonstrating real consumer electronics products that were available. Some of them were quite expensive, of course, but you know, they're mostly available right now.
So could we assume that there's a new term here, bring your own authenticator or something like that? I personally think that there is something there ongoing there, and it will actually relate to enterprises and API security in future, where I think there's going to be a much more fragmented set of credentials and variables you need to consider when you're doing access control and authenticating people and doing things like authorization and so on. It's not
Yeah,
given
I
that
guess
you can
it's
mandate
context,
that.
right? It's a richer set of contextual information that we can apply to access control decisions, and that's you know, that's really the nirvana, I suppose.
You know, security aside, I thought that one of the major themes that I picked up on at the Congress was the accessibility of internet and data to nations where, you know, it's not widely adopted. People don't have data plans. Mark Zuckerberg talked about it in his keynote as well, about, you know, providing free internet, or, you know, their Facebook now is partnering with several carriers in different regions in Europe to provide Facebook for free outside your data plan, so people can pick up a smartphone. They can, you know, use Facebook and some other free
Messaging,
messaging.
Wikipedia, I think
Okay.
this is kind of the...
And then, you know, once people start to use it, then those particular carriers have seen an uptake in people purchasing smartphones and phones with data plans, because then they understand, or they appreciate the value that they get, you know, from having, you know, information at their fingertips through a mobile device. And I also thought that, you know, my friend Jonathan Nightingale is over at Firefox, and I had a chance to catch up with him, and, you know, Firefox was hot for having the $25 smartphone.
Right.
And, you know, I think providing lower cost phones, and we've seen it with Nokia as well, you know, providing a lower cost phone model for, you know, emerging markets, to give, you know, people that don't necessarily have a tremendous amount of resources available access to phones, and to not only to phones but to smartphones that, you know, have graphics and, you know, have a screen that you can do some more sophisticated, you know, information stuff with, instead of using, you know, text messaging like many nations are doing right now, everything through, sort of a feature
Yeah.
phone with text messaging everywhere. So
How about
Yeah,
wearable
I-
technology? Was that a huge presence? Did you see much of that?
I
Samsung
know
had the
that
wearable watch.
I know that Ian
There
went
was-
to a wearables get together and a wearables party. I didn't see a lot of it really.
Yeah.
There were
But
a
I
few
think
things,
that
right?
it
There was
is
like there
something
was
that's out there, and
there
there
was,
was a few things, a few marketing things, like like a kid tracker, for example, like a wearable thing with a GPS that you can put on your
It's a
kid
good
or
idea.
your dog or your.
The whole
And they wear it as like a wristband, and it's
Yeah.
the whole
Wow.
Internet of Things is kind of exploding, and I think in many ways the drivers in this with this connected device world is going to be the very same
Yeah.
guys. It's going to be Samsung, Apple, Google, and so on. Because what's really going on here? It's an ecosystem war. It's a mind share war, and these players are the ones that really get the mind share of the developers. So therefore, they're presenting a very credible story about, hey, you want to write an app for this gear or whatever device it is. It will turn into medical devices and so on. You see more and more healthcare related products
Sure.
communicating through your mobile phone, and so on. So basically, they are seeing value in extended revenue in accessories, and then app developers get a broader range of devices to push their apps into.
right.
yeah. So there were a couple of cool things, right? They had
we get early questions sometimes through email, and it's sort of outside of the topic, but we had one of our viewers. He seems to come quite often. His name's Imran. Sorry if I didn't pronounce your name properly. And simply wants to know the difference. If you guys could comment on the difference between M2M and IoT. You just mentioned IoT, and I just thought it would be nice to try to answer his question for him.
Okay, yeah. So M2M you can probably see as a more closed subset or vertical of IoT in many ways. I mean, it's pretty much the connectivity layer you're talking about here,
Okay.
which the carriers are a huge player in provisioning connectivity to various devices. IoT is more about the grander vision of connected smart objects and so on.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably what I would say.
That's the main distinction.
Yeah.
Okay. And Leif, you also wanted to touch on Jola or Yola.
Yeah. So that was one of the players down there that I noticed they had a lot of traffic on their booth because it was right next to the CA booth.
Okay.
And some of these, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily Mozilla is a smaller player, but in the mobile world maybe but they're creating a lot of attention and a lot of traffic to the booth. Same as Mozilla. So Yola doing a new mobile operating system, competing with all the others. It was interesting to see their pitch down there and how they trying to create an alternative to the other players. So there's a lot of niche players, and they seem to be worthwhile to still be there, even if you're up against like somebody so big as Google and Samsung, right?
So they're a real mobile operating system that's going to compete against Android, Windows,
Yeah.
iOS.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's a crowded space, right? But they still seem
But
to
the
be
market is
the market is big.
right.
I'd really like to see the Ubuntu booth as well myself.
Yeah.
Because Ubuntu is coming out. Well, they have now a pretty stable version of their OS for your phone too. It's supported. It's like, I don't know if it's fully released yet, but they're on release candidate 5 or something. They're very close to having an official version release, and so it was
Absolutely.
interesting talking to those guys too, and seeing because they were there again last year with their initial offering, I think, and then this year to see how it's matured is it's pretty cool to see these guys starting to play in the mobile OS space.
Well, so the whole thing they have there is of course that they have presence on multiple points of presence on the desktop. They're on servers. They get this thing rolled out to mobile devices, tablets, whatnot. And now you can start looking at how can we optimize the user experience when a user is accessing devices or services from different devices, and you're expecting this whole ecosystem of your devices to, whether it's your car, home, whatever, to be working together to give you an optimized view of your service. That would be the next big challenge, I think, in mobile, and obviously this is an area that we are looking to innovate in ourselves.
And that's something too that Chrome is already dabbling in that space, right? You can be working on your Chrome laptop and then move to your tablet sort of seamlessly. And I think we're going to start to see more and more of this tie into identity management. When you're talking about single sign-ons between sessions, we're working on the tablet, and then I can go to my desktop. We can somehow leverage the identity where I can just pick up where I left off without having to sign in, potentially, different scenarios like that.
Which is great for user experience.
Yeah, and we've seen some customers do some interesting stuff in that area, and we're going to continue looking at ourselves how we can improve that with the solutions we have in the market space. Whether it's SiteMinder, Mobile Access Gateway, and so on. How can we bridge an SSO session across different devices, like your car and your phone, unlock your car, etc. Things like that.
So what were some of the main, or what were people interested in when they were coming to the booth, asking questions? I mean, obviously, if people want to know what you do, but what were kind of some of the main questions that were coming up around the booth?
So luckily this year we didn't have a lot of what's an API.
Right.
In the past
Because
we did get a lot of that, especially in the being in the developer pavilion, and you have a wide variety of people coming down. This year the Whip Jam, which is the development portion of the Congress, where they have hackathons and speakers, targeted directly at mobile developers. So the Whip Jam last year was right downstairs, so we had a lot more developers, sort of hardcore end users of APIs coming by the booth that didn't necessarily know APIs, and we didn't. The Whip Jam this year was held in a different venue, so it was held over at the Fira Montjuic, and so we didn't have a lot of that crowd coming by. We had more targeted enterprise management coming by that are developing mobile strategy, that are looking for ways to secure their APIs, and are interested in single sign-on, interested in implementing OAuth in a manageable, sustainable way, which I thought there was a lot of things where Layer 7 really excels in those areas. So I think we had a lot of really good questions, and people who are already well into developing their mobile strategy and API management strategy.
Who had specific questions around security, OAuth, and single sign-on.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
Yeah, pretty much
of
my
course,
experience as well.
There's
direct questions about I have this application I'm building out, and I do need to get the security welded to this app. How do I do that?
Yeah.
So very direct questions.
Good.
Ross, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's still this standard idea that carriers are trying to expose network services as APIs. So we have continued to do a lot of business in that space, selling directly to the telcos. What we're seeing, I guess, more and more of is communications as a service. There's a variety of vendors out there that are helping to plug applications directly into like voice services and video services. We're also looking at more context and informational data that the telcos have to offer. So being able to expose information as an API, identity services as APIs, for example. So there's been a whole range of that. Basically, how does a Vodafone or a Telefonica or an AT&T combat the threat of Zuckerberg and his idea of the free wireless internet? I think internet.org, as he talked about, is a great idea in many regards, but carriers are going to be left holding the bag in terms of how they actually pay to deliver that data service. So they're looking at how they can offer value. What are the additional services that a network can expose to the Facebooks and the WhatsApps of the world that enhances their service, but it still allows them to deliver data transport at the lowest possible cost.
Hey Ross, can you remind me again why it wasn't you and I that invented WhatsApp?
I can't remember. I could have sworn I had this idea for IP messaging a long time ago. We met the CEO.
We actually have a comment through the chat. What's the best beer in Barcelona? ABI guy. I probably meant to say API guy, but it says.
So
what's the best beer in Barcelona?
So Barcelona, I don't think is really that known for its beers, although there was a bar called the Cat Bar that I never made it to, apparently has like some good beers. But speaking of beer, there was a booth from the Northern Ireland booth, and they had something called the Brewbot. So these guys developed an app, and they like used it to automate brewing of beer. So they had a chocolate stout, they had
at the booth.
At the booth, they had a pale ale, and they had some other ale as well that they made using their app. So Brewbot, Google that. That's pretty cool.
Shout out to my friends in Northern Ireland for sure. They had some pretty interesting things. Yeah.
The other thing I would like to mention is around automotive.
Sure.
Because moving around the show floors, there was hardly a booth without the car.
Oh really?
Oh, it was amazing, and they were all packed up and trimmed with various different size of wheels and whatnot. It was unbelievable. And then one of was Tektronix that had Volkswagen, an old Volkswagen transporter there. That was like the different guys. But yeah, it was amazing to see how all these different verticals, if you like, are starting to play together in this kind of new connected world where mobile devices are controlling various aspects. Whether it's your ventilation system or in the building or heat control in the car, or even starting, opening, unlocking the car, and things like that. A lot of interest in that, and a lot of stuff on show there.
I agree. I thought I saw a lot more of that this year than last year. I think last year I saw a model of one car down, somewhere around the Pavilion 3, and this year there was, several. There was at least 2 cars in the developer pavilion to showcase developer.gm.com, I think, and also Ford was there. So these guys are starting to expose some of the development methods that they have, and haven't had time to really dive in and see what they offer. If just an ordinary end user can sign up and get an account and start playing around with this stuff or not, or what they have available. But there was a presence in the development to hope that auto companies are taking development seriously. They're taking we have auto manufacturers as customers that are using us to protect their services, and I think that it's good to see that they're leveraging and adopting an API model, because it just suits the model very well, I think.
Did the iOS auto announcement, did that come through Mobile World Congress, or was that after?
Yeah, that was after. That was at the Geneva Motor Show just yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
They announced that.
But it's not surprise though. It's the same players again, right?
Right.
And it's interesting, this last few months where we saw some automaker having security hole,
Right.
and so on. So the more functionality we can expose now through APIs, and the more they go in that direction, the more they really need to think about security. And how do you provision your security tokens to the car or to the phone and so on. And you do not want to have a failure in these areas.
No. Okay, I'll just remind, people watching, that you can always make comments and even ask specific questions. Like I said, with the hashtag Layer7Live or write them right in the chat. We're sort of getting towards the end of the time, so any final comments would be great. Inram, I hope we answered your question. I hope you're on the line. And you can always email them if you have a longer question or you weren't able to, you didn't have the time to sit and listen to the whole thing. So techtalk@layer7tech.com. You can email questions and we'll try to find the answers for that. Thanks, Paco. Paco says, thanks for doing this. Great job. So any final thoughts?
One company that has a really good API that I saw, so shout out to Linda Smith from Twilio. I stopped by and I talked to the Twilio booth, and they have a good, they have a great API.
Yeah.
And I saw that there was more and more presence as well in the developer pavilion around companies providing SMS as a service.
Right.
So you can build SMS into your app. There's no annual fee or contract or anything. You sign up for an account and you pay like a per transaction fee on sending SMS messages. And I think that space is starting to fill up anyway. Still a lot of presence.
One of the things that I thought was perhaps maybe not noticeably missing, but underhyped was this idea of real-time video communications. The platform that we're using right now to have this hangout, is great. It's it's a fantastic service that that Google offers us. But there's a lot of other vendors out there that have been promoting things like WebRTC, and it's an opportunity not just for service providers like Google, but also for the telcos, I suppose. And it seemed to be underhyped for sure. I think there's a lot of talk of next generation communications in general, and it seemed like we didn't really promote it a whole lot this year during the show. But shout out to some of our partners such as Tropo that have been working on voice as a service and now WebRTC, and we definitely see that sort of angle being increasingly important.
One other thing that I thought that wasn't really widely showcased, but I read a few articles on it that, it's not that sexy because it's to do with protocols, but was LTE carrier aggregation. So it's the next generation of LTE to, provide faster downloads by aggregating data across multiple endpoints and stuff like that. So I thought that's something that is going to be the future, to allow devices to make use of the CPUs and the RAM and everything that's being made available in these handheld computers that we have. So really accelerating data download speeds and the ability to download big data quickly across carriers is pretty cool.
We did get a question just at the end. Edwin says, from your perspective, how would an IoT architecture look like that involves Google Glass? I think that's probably a tough question to answer, but
Google Glass, eh?
So how does...
Surely it
he
already
said,
is an IoT architecture.
From your perspective, how would an IoT architecture look like that involves Google Glass?
Ross says it surely already is.
Forget about
it is. It's
a
thing that's got an internet connection. It's an example of the Internet of Things.
Yeah.
And it'll become increasingly connected. So yeah.
The critical thing is that with the Internet of Things, you're gonna get a lot of more sensors and devices communicating. Some of them are gonna consume APIs or data. Yeah. Others are gonna publish data. Sure. So the question becomes: is there a bandwidth crunch here emerging, right? So what you would need to do is actually to look at the way you filter data. So you have these devices out in the peripheral, in the field, and you have some sort of backend, whether it's on-prem or in cloud, elastic, scalable services, backend services, and now there's going to flow data, a lot of data, and whether it's 50 billion or 100 billion, whatever number that is, you're got to make sure that you're not flooding the networks with unnecessary data. So you're looking towards client-side filtering, you're looking towards server-side filtering, you're looking to expose the data as APIs, but in either way you're controlling, that you don't flood the networks.
Yep. Sorry, Ross, did you get to finish your thought?
Yeah.
To answer the question, I think, and to sort of delve into the architecture of a Google Glass. The Google Glass is a device. It's a mobile device. A tablet is a mobile device. A phone is a mobile device. The architecture is that if I had a whiteboard, I would whiteboard something up. But it's a client architecture. So we have a Google Glass as a client is reaching out to get data from somewhere, from multiple places. It's connected to a network. So if Google Glass is going to take advantage and leverage sensitive information, it's very similar to a tablet or a mobile phone trying to access sensitive information. So the call would go out, or calls are going back and forth between Google Glass and getting protected data in a protected zone. So generally, the architecture is going to be firewall, load balancer. These are API calls. Some sort of security mechanism that's going to perform authentication authorization to make sure, hopefully over mutually authenticated SSL would be, ideal. But obviously, it comes down to, it's a client-side device that's accessing information that's, should be protected. So your protected zone is going to be somehow protected by, in our case, Layer 7 specializes in gateway technology. So a gateway is going to perform authentication authorization of not only that device, but of the user of that device. So, in the future we'd see probably some sort of retina scan that would, identify that Leif is wearing the Google Glass. I know that it's Leif. Somehow he, his device then also is going to, perform most likely like an OpenID Connect, JSON Web Token, OAuth to authentication in order to access endpoints or some kind of authentication. But in mobile, we're seeing a lot more adoption of OAuth and OpenID Connect features. So that's generally the architecture that I've seen.
Great answer. One last question that just came in from Transmobi, #FloodHack. Has anyone worked on an API that's helped emergency services?
Anyone has worked on that? I know we do business in US Federal with various emergency departments there. I cannot tell you exactly what the APIs are.
There's been recent regulations
well,
for
availability would probably be one.
to the connected car stuff that we saw.
Security and service availability is obviously critical.
Okay, sorry, Ross, I think we talked over you there again for a second.
Oh, sorry.
What were you
A little
saying?
bit, no worries. I'm just saying there was the connected car use cases and a lot of the stuff that we're actually working on. There's been EU regulation to force, E112 or E911 automated responder scenarios from the car. So there's definitely some emergency services stuff going on in that domain.
Okay. So API for flood data, for example, was kind of a follow-up comment, I guess maybe clarification from user Transmobi. API for flood data, for example. Do you know what that means?
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe you could just expand.
Oh,
Transmobi, what do you mean by flood data? The Smart Cities program would have some connection there.
Okay. Sure, I guess, and there were some announcements, I guess. Orange, France Telecom announced some things around smart
push
cities.
notifications. You want a real-time access to this data, right? So if you're an emergency service, it's critical for you to basically get the data out to the real audience, that requires this data. So you're probably going to look at push services as a mechanism to deliver.
Right, I think they're talking about distributing alerts to people in his city under emergency situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay.
Right.
And sorry, I think we cut off Ross again one more time.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. I was just saying that we did see some announcements around smart cities from the likes of France Telecom last week, but I didn't pick up on anything specific to something like these emergency notifications. But makes good sense.
So floods, hurricanes, and those kinds of situations.
Yeah.
That's what he was getting at with flood API stuff. Okay, so we're pretty much out of time. There's still a few comments coming in this discussion around the flood, the emergency services, cities under pressure, emergency situations. But maybe we can reach out to you guys if you want to send your question through email or through Twitter with the hashtag Layer7Live, and we can maybe answer the question, in a little bit more detail. Maybe think about it through, because there's little pieces coming in, and I think it's a little bit difficult for the guys to understand exactly what it is you want to know. Yeah, does that work?
Yep, sounds great.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So thanks everybody for joining us. Great discussion, and thanks to our guests, Leif, Jeff, and Ross.
Thanks for having us.
Ross, sorry, I think we talked over you a couple of times because there was a little bit of a delay. So hopefully you.
Don't worry.
were able
Don't worry.
to-
I'll get a chance to get my own back eventually.
Yeah, Ross is used to this, so that's okay.
He's like the little brother.
Yeah.
Irish guy.
Irish. Oh, I see. Okay. But thanks so much. I appreciate it. We know it's lunchtime out there where you are, Ross, and you guys just got in.
Absolutely.
So thanks again. I really appreciate it. Thanks to Jose, who's flipping switches, making sure everything's running smooth.
Cool. I'm
And-
gonna plant the seed in people's heads, like as some closing comments.
Sure.
And I'm going to say, think about your mobile strategy, put it together properly, spend time and do it right. And if you're building APIs, plan your APIs properly. Make sure they are always backward compatible. Never change the URIs, and protect sensitive data.
Great.
See, don't leave me hanging.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. We'll have to have this on the bloopers reel. Awkward moments on. No, just kidding. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your questions and comments. We really appreciate it. I know some always kind of come in a few minutes afterward, but we'll try to get those all addressed in time. Thanks very much.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
See you, Ross.
See you, Ross.
See you.
Bye.